All right. Hello and welcome everyone to another Doc Talk. We are very excited to be back. We have Aaron Schatz and Mike Tanier in, as well as, of course, Dr. Lynn Lashbrook. And we'll be getting started here in just a minute or two. Some ground rules. We will be keeping everyone muted until it is time to take audience questions. And we definitely do want to take your questions. So in order to show that you have one for either Aaron, Mike, or Dr. Lashbrook, please click the raise hand button, which you can find at the bottom of the participants list. Click participants, and at the bottom, you will see the blue button that says raise hand. Also, feel free to use the chat function to network, share your LinkedIn profile, connect with those that are here in this room. We're very excited to have you all in. This is recorded, so if you would like to go back and re-listen to anything that was shared, the recording will be coming out tomorrow morning once it becomes available to us. And without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic over to Dr. Lashbrook and welcome everyone in.
Thank you, Ike, and thank you, the team, Sharice and Megan and everybody, the staff. Adam will come in at the end. This is exciting. Normally, Aaron and Mike, we see in Indy every year. I've missed it. I'm tired of it. I hope to get back, but we're going to make these Doc Talks work. We started them with COVID, and we appreciate everybody coming in. We're going to have some fun. It's just an hour, and we'll stay around to answer your questions. Aaron, you be patient with me. The same old story, same old question, but we got a lot of new people in here, our largest Doc Talk. And how'd you get started, assuming you went to high school? And thanks for coming in, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me here. And I'm glad to do it. And I miss Indy and I miss everybody. I miss everybody too. I miss all the people and I miss being able to actually be with human beings in Indy. So how I got started, I've got an economics degree. And I was a radio disc jockey for a while. And then I was working in the internet world. And I basically had questions about football that nobody was answering. I always was a big fan of Bill James and the baseball analytics folks. And there was nobody really doing anything equivalent for football. And I wanted to know some things. So I cut and pasted a bunch of play-by-play from the 2002 season into an Excel spreadsheet and started creating stats out of it and wrote a few articles and distributed them to a few people. And people seemed to like what we were doing, but thought it was a little esoteric. So we launched our own website. And I launched the Football Outsiders in July of 2003. And got some attention right away and was writing for some other outlets by 2004. And I've been doing this ever since.
It's a great story, my friend. And Ike will make sure we get the website and everything up. Mike, good to see you and miss you in Indy as well. And many other places. I think the Super Bowl a year ago. And anyhow, I'm just glad that we're all healthy and I don't get Zoom fatigue. I get Zoom strong because we have no choice. Mike, assuming you went to high school, tell us your story.
I not only went to high school, but I taught high school. I was a high school mathematics teacher in Southern New Jersey for many, many years, and also an avid football fan who lurked on message boards back in the old days. And we're talking about the days of AOL, dial-up, and you'd go onto these message boards and argue about fantasy football, et cetera, et cetera. I was always trying to prove people wrong statistically with my encyclopedias and things like that. This was before there was Pro Football Reference. After a while, that grew to the point where I was working for a very small outlet, doing some fantasy football updates, et cetera. Not getting my name out there, making a little bit of money, not the most rewarding work in the world where you're like, oh, Brett Favre had a great game last week. He'll have another great one this week. So have him on your fantasy team. Not particularly fulfilling, although it got my foot in the door. Eventually, I had the opportunity to meet Aaron, to email with Aaron, first of all, and he gave me an opportunity at Football Outsiders. And from Football Outsiders, it was a hop, skip, and a jump to Fox Sports, and then the New York Times, and then eventually Bleacher Report with a lot of other places in between. I'm now with Pro Football Network, and I'm also back with the New York Times at times. So one thing I'll say is it's been a journey. It's also been a learning experience that really started when we hit the industry. And I think Aaron can agree. You hit the industry, and that's when you really start learning. It's not about getting your foot in the door necessarily. That's a huge part of it. But every stage along the way, you learn more, both about football itself, the management of football, et cetera, the statistics, and the business of it. Every year it grows, it evolves, and we have to grow and evolve with it.
So great stuff. Well, before we dig in, I want both of your opinion. The impact of COVID on your industry. before we talk about the industry. We're going to have a lot of questions today. This is a good group. But I just want to know, first, the accentuation, or what was the role? How did COVID impact the industry? Good, bad, or ugly? Go ahead, Aaron.
Well, as far as our day-to-day lives, it didn't have a lot of impact because most of us who are football writers or football analysts, not folks who work for teams, but those of us on the outside, we already worked from home. So we just continued to work from home. The only thing is I got a cube mate because now my girlfriend works from home too. Otherwise, it's the same work I've always done. The larger effect, though, on the business of, and remember, Mike and I are both in the sort of journalism world of analytics, is the effect is not been good. I mean, there were fewer fantasy football players this year, fewer people bought subscriptions, ratings for football were down. I mean, still really high, but down. And there have definitely been people losing jobs, and there have been cuts in places, and it's not the best time to be an online sports journalist.
Okay. Mike, your additional comments to the same question, the impact of COVID. We know it's affected all our lives, but on the industry as a whole.
Well, I did mention I am a former employee of Bleacher Report and am now working for a variety of outlets. So that gives a hint as to how things went down. Basically, when sports shut down around this time last year, we were watching the 1996 Stanley Cup, or we were watching Tiger King. We were not watching sports that did not exist. Advertising rates took an immediate bath. Sites began cutting intensely and extremely, and there was an incredible amount of uncertainty. The fact that there was a 16 game NFL season and Super Bowl was not something that we could take for granted. So the sports journalism world is always a little bit volatile. It's been especially volatile the last year because of that. And I think we've seen a little bit of it even with the NCAA tournament. Ratings are down. A little bit of the enthusiasm is down as people are trying to right now sort of get into the world of sports. My faith is that it's going to come back stronger than ever. I think that in our industry, there's going to be stability. The shakeout will have taught us some life lessons. I think I did a lot of traveling before, unlike Aaron, and I will do some more traveling, but there was some traveling that was being done for the sake of traveling. I think that's disappearing, and we'll learn some lessons and maybe be a little leaner, but move forward and have the opportunity to talk to readers and to talk to viewers and to tell our stories.
Right. Thank you, Mike. Aaron, let's get back to the NFL and the role of analytics and what teams are. Some are doing more than others. I'm fascinated with analytics. I started with baseball back in the 50s when I caught foul balls based on the previous foul ball. I was really deep in way before Bill James. But my question is, where are the trends? There's a lot of people who are thinking about careers. Before we get to specific jobs, just talk about the trends of analytics and you're witnessing.
Everything about analytics in the NFL now is about the player tracking data. Like that's really where all the growth is going to be now. That's with the chips in the pads and in the ball and what you know as the next gen stats go far beyond just the miles per hour or a couple of things that they may have shown on broadcasts. In the first year or two that they did this, it was kind of amazing. They only released to teams the data for your team. Like, for example, you would get player tracking data on a pass play. You wouldn't even get the defensive backs. Like, you would only get to see your 11 players. Well, you're not going to learn much from that. But at some point 3 or 4 years ago, they decided to open it up. And now every team gets all the data from all 32 teams, from all 16 games. I'm assuming from the preseason as well, when we go back to having a preseason. And there's so much that can be done. Already, even outsiders in the Big Data Bowl competition created this amazing model for expected rushing yards that's now being used on broadcasts. For like, on this run, you would have expected the running back to get 4 yards. Instead, he got 14, demonstrates which running backs are better than other running backs. Like there's so much that can be done with the player tracking data. And I think that teams are hiring people and they've just scratched the surface of what they can do.
Great stuff. Mike, you want to add to that? And then we're going to go to questions because as we do every week, my worldwide chat since COVID, 30, 40 people come in. But Aaron and Mike will tell you when in the class, it's about you. and we take your question every week, and you get a chance to participate. I also encourage everybody to write notes to each other, get to know each other, share LinkedIn. This is the beginning of a career, and we're going to help it happen. Mike, your comments on the expansion of analytics that you've witnessed.
There's an expansion of interest and acceptance within the media. They're used more within the media. They're being used in different ways by teams. And so just about every stage along the way, Aaron can tell you, he was doing this in 2005. It was like you were banging rocks together. It was so, and no one was listening. You were banging rocks together and no one was listening. Now, casually, and Aaron talked about, the next gen stats will appear. They'll be talking about yak on broadcasts. You'll go to coaches and they'll be talking about yak and things like that. So it's a very different environment right now. And there are opportunities out there. One thing I will mention, when I do the course, I usually do the sports science section. And when you talk about tracking data, and I was worried you're going to say, oh, the chips in the vaccine. I thought you were going to say that. the chips in the shoulder pads and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's an industry. It's not just that we're getting data. People have to track that. People have to go and be at Lincoln Financial Field or at the NovaCare Center and put the chips in and sit there on the field. There are companies, contractors, people who are out there talking to football players every day in that line of work. We don't even think about it. It's adjunct to analytics.
Because the NFL,
part of the sports science world.
The NFL has a whole program to record during games, but then every team has to have its own program to record player movement during practice and use that to try to come up with the best practices for practice. The best practices for practice,
Right. So I'm sitting there waiting for my 5 minutes to go talk to Carson Wentz or whatever. Meanwhile, the person who's got to hook the wires up, make sure everything's right, test everything, is there 15 minutes talking to Carson Wentz, 15 minutes talking to Jalen Hurts, whatever. Maybe not getting the inside scoop, but that opportunity to be part of the game, part of the NFL world is there for that 20-something, and not necessarily there for me because that's not my field.
Great stuff. We're going to go to Ethan. I encourage all of you to raise your hand. I could get you in. This is about you. Ethan, introduce yourself, what you do, and write into your question or comment for both of our panel.
Hi there. Thank you. So currently I'm working on graduating from college, but I've been working with our college team here in the NAIA actually, but I also work with a high school up in North Dallas, doing a lot of analytic stuff. So reports, tendencies, all that good stuff. So my question for Aaron is, what kind of is the market job wise for the future, and where do you project it to grow, and kind of how do you get into those networks for those jobs in dealing with analytics for ESPN, all these other companies, Football Outsiders, or just the NFL in general?
Ethan, great question. I'll start with Aaron and then go to Mike.
The best advice I can give is to just start doing things on your own. Just teach yourself and just put work out there. There's an incredible analytics community right now on Twitter of people who just post stuff on Twitter, and there's all kinds of free stuff available. When I started, I had to create my own play-by-play database because there was no such thing. No one had a play-by-play database. I had to put it together. Now there's a freely available play-by-play database of everything going back to 1999. As far as hiring people, and this especially goes, in the journalism world, it helps to be able to write and communicate your ideas. As far as working for teams, communicating your ideas is also important, but really they need people who can code, because you need to be able to code in order to work with the tracking data. So you've really got to learn R or Python in order to get a job with a team doing analytics at this point.
Great stuff. Mike, you want to add to that?
What's great is you're doing some of the things already, because you say you're involved with the NAIA, you're involved with the high school. That's where the networking starts, because those coaches know D3 coaches, and those coaches know coaches at bigger high schools, et cetera, and you work your way through that. Last year, when I was the majority teacher of the course, we had a community college head coach or defensive coordinator. We've had lots of other people in the SMWW program. So those inroads are where it starts. And then, as Aaron said, it's about building out your knowledge base from there. So when someone says, hey, someone at a D1 FCS school needs this, can you do it? You can jump in on that. Let me ask you something, Aaron, though. You talked about that Twitter community. How many people got poached from that Twitter community into some sort of team job in the last 3 or 4 years? Or several,
Great
right?
question.
Several of them, in fact. Like Baltimore at one point just hired 3 people whose work basically had just been on Twitter and now they work for the Baltimore Ravens. So it's been between people being hired off Twitter and people being hired from the big data bowl competition. There's been a remarkable expansion of the analytics, people working for teams over the last 2 years.
Great stuff, you guys, both vertically all the way to high school and globally around the world. We're gonna go to Abe next. And Abe, come with your introduction and questions for Mike and Aaron.
Hi, thank you guys for taking the time out today. I'm a junior at Tulane University. I work for the football team as an equipment manager. I'm currently just trying to build any experience I can get kind of in the front office kind of role kind of scene. But I was wondering, since you guys are obviously very familiar with analytics and whatnot, with someone that has done what I've done working for the equipment team, what's you think like a next step that I might be able to take within, the program that can maybe familiarize myself with those kind of skills? Or
besides taking our course, Aaron.
Right.
Yeah, I would say besides taking the course and learning about the history of football analytics and all the various different methods that are out there and the strengths and weaknesses of all of them, I'd say trying to get into some kind of a quality control gig, because the original analytics was quality control, right? The guy who watches film of your last 3 or 4 opponents and marks down how often they ran each personnel group, how often they ran certain plays out of each personnel groups, that is effectively analytics. And that was sort of the beginning of analytics in football. So that would give you both that gives you the ability to analyze that data, but it also gives you a little bit of scouting background to mark the data. So it's got sort of dual value.
Yeah. Mike, you want to add to that?
Yeah. The equipment might go towards the sports science a little bit more, because we talked about the chips and the shoulder pads. You might be working hand in glove with those type of people, learn that skill. And one other thing, and it doesn't sound like what you're interested in, and it's a little sideways from the analytics. Once you're in the field and you're in the headquarters of whatever team, there are things like the social media departments and the film departments that are emerging, and we all count on them. And as a more of a reporter, I get to know the people in the social media, but they're running the Twitter accounts and things like that. There's ways in like that to go up. So analytics isn't the one true path necessarily to being a GM or whatever. But once you're in that building, there's a lot of varieties of things like that. Whether it's our course or other courses at SMWW, we build that broad base of skills.
I tell students every day, get those informational interviews. One of our faculty talked about doing information. When you're at SMWW, you've invested in yourself. The more people you meet, whether it's the high school, the college level. And Aaron, I know the growth of the football department, particularly with the new revolution of athletes probably getting paid, the departments, the analytics, et cetera, both in the football major program, even the small programs. I literally think being equipment manager is a huge step of understanding the industry. Yeah. And I'm so proud of these kids, because when they're in a doc talk, they want to better themselves. Here's one of my questions. The sports betting is another new revolution of revenue. Where do they fit in bringing in their own analytics people? I know Vegas have been doing it for years, if I may, but I'm fascinated by the sports betting industry and the growth and the revenue shared. It's a huge, it really is part of the 2.0 revolution. Aaron, I'll start with you.
The trick is to do analytics that help people, make people feel like it's helping them to bet, but without trying to beat Vegas, because Vegas has people who are doing it too, and it's beating them is almost impossible. But there's no question that it's a huge influx of interest to those of us on the outside who don't work for teams. Yeah. There's a massive movement towards the sports gaming, and they're going to need analytics people at all the sports books. They're going to need analytics people for the sites like FanDuel and DraftKings. Yeah. They're going to need analytics people who are analyzing gambling for all of the outside websites like Football Outsiders. Like, it's absolutely like a big moneymaker in the future.
Let's go with Mike on his follow-up.
Yeah, it's a growth industry. DFS, the daily fantasy, that's a part of it too, and that's totally emergent. I remember Aaron would put things on the website. I was just getting to know him, and a big thing was fumble luck. And fumble luck basically said that a team that's recovering a lot of fumbles in a row might have a hot streak. They might be an overrated team. I'm really blue skying it, but that's it. And he was putting that on. It's I read that in a handicapper's guide in 1984. It's like, watch out for a team that has a high fumble rate over the last couple of weeks because like the spread will be too high. So much of what we're doing in analytics, the house is still ahead of us to that degree when it comes to gambling. When you get to daily fantasy where the games are being invented and the rules are changed, and like, well, how can we analyze how many catches Alvin Kamara is going to have next week and what his daily fantasy price should be? Totally emergent field. It's a growth field. We're not worried about the ratings going down 1% or whatever, as long as the games are being played. And yes, FanDuel, DraftKings, these guys are employers right now. They're massive employers, and there are new ones sprouting up in every state every time a state legislature gets together.
So before we got more questions coming in a minute. I got a couple follow-up, and I encourage anybody to raise their hand. Esports. We talked about sports betting, fantasy sports. Let's talk about esports and how is it applicable in analytics or not? I may be crazy with the question. Aaron?
I met a guy, actually. I don't remember his name. I went to this dinner that was put on by a stock firm in New York with a bunch of bright minds in analytics. Billy Beane was there.
Yeah.
Annie Duke, the poker player, was there.
Yeah, and we were there. I was there with you.
No, you were that. Annie Duke was in another thing that you were at with me.
There's no alcohol involved, was there?
There was alcohol involved, and there was a guy who does analytics for esports. Like there absolutely is a market for that. Like there's no question. I mean, the two of us are too old to watch League of Legends games, but like there's absolutely a market for that. It's not related to football, but esports is definitely a growing industry, and somebody out there is doing analytics for it.
Yeah, Mike, you want to add?
My little Zoomers upstairs, they'll be playing their games for hours. It's like, well, and then they'll have strong opinions. Like, why don't you go blog about it? Why don't you go get involved in this community, get involved in this industry? I don't know where that's going. It's just obviously growing. And that's all we can say about it.
Before I go to Peter with the next question, I do want to ask, you mentioned it before, Bill James in baseball. I've been to the Indy conference where I saw other industry analyst people together cross-pollinating. How much cross-pollination goes on, even though the game is completely different with your other colleagues in other sports?
More than you would expect. I definitely, in the early days, got some ideas from baseball. I got some ideas from basketball. Now the hockey people are really active. Yes. The woman who runs hockeygraphs.com was one of the finalists in the Big Data Bowl doing football research. And a woman who used to work for the Eagles now works for the Seattle Kraken, the NHL expansion team. Like there's a good amount of people who've gone back and forth between sports. I knew a guy who worked for the Jaguars who then went and worked for the Minnesota Twins. There's definitely some movement between sports.
Before I go to Peter, Mike, you want to add to that?
Very little. I was kind of like, somebody who started out with Football Outsiders went into the basketball realm later, or was affiliated with us. It is surprisingly common because I know nothing about basketball or hockey, but it's surprisingly common.
Okay, let's go to Peter with your introduction. Thanks for coming in, Peter.
Hi, guys. I'm Peter from Hungary, Europe. I am an economist here in Hungary. And I wanted to ask you about the thing that you mentioned, that you get the same data that the NFL teams use for analytics. And my question is that how can you use this data on the same way that the teams can use to reach the same conclusion as the teams can?
Great question. Thank you so much, Peter.
Unfortunately, we don't get the same data because, for example, the player tracking data only goes to the NFL teams and to ESPN. Those of us in the public don't get access to it. What they do give us access to is pieces of it from a couple of years ago. The Big Data Bowl competition, for example, this year's Big Data Bowl was studying defense. And what they did was they released all the pass plays from like 2018 to study. But as far as the current data, that only goes to NFL teams.
Mike, you want to add?
Yeah, and all that tracking data is very hard to come by. Generally, you don't get it, you get it late. A lot of the data you get that research is done on outside of teams is homegrown by folks like Pro Football Focus, by Sports Info Solutions, other companies, where it's like teams of dedicated volunteers, more or less, or people making a small amount of money to chart these things themselves. It's incredibly accurate what we get, but we're a little ways away from getting actual GPS data as journalists or as analytics people to be able to work with on a weekly basis. And that's now the holy grail. And when we get that holy grail, it's a quantum leap forward for the whole industry.
So my question, I always say go global and go home. We have 20,000 alum from 163 different countries, and thinking of Peter there and others, I go back to global and talent discovery. The football player in Hungary or never seen the game, but definitely runs a 4.9 and he's 6'4" and 280 pounds. Where does analytics fit into talent discovery identification, particularly during COVID? Because that's an industry in itself, I'm sure. Aaron, I'll start with you.
Well, there definitely are ways that you can analyze that kind of data, the combine data or pro day data, to get ideas for which players might excel or not excel. And so there absolutely, analytics are used in the draft. Analytics are used to identify talent. I don't even know if colleges use analytics at all to identify high school talent. There must be some that do.
There must be, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Mike, you want to add to that?
There is some, yeah. And when you start going out to Germany or Hungary, we don't have data on the leagues. We don't have data on the style of play, the level of play. You can do things, and some of the things Aaron has done in the past about, height, weight, BMI, vertical jump, 40s, things like that. You can get athletic baselines, and you can make a very accurate projection to, say, an American athlete who is very similar but has been playing the sport. So you can say they're athletically similar, that they should be able to do similar things. What we are starting to get better at is smaller conferences, things like that, as the data grows. And I think high school, to a degree, as the databases grow, then this information grows and you can do more with it.
And before I go to Ike, he has a question. I'm just curious. I remember when hockey was starting out and some of can't do it in hockey, can't do it here, can't do it there. Dean Oliver, of course, in basketball, Bill James in baseball, it goes on and on. My question is, where are we in the evolution of coaches' pushback instead of coaches' embrace? Are we getting there? Are we past the curve, if I may? Aaron, your comments?
Coaches are definitely embracing a lot more. There are certain coaches that definitely embrace. There are, like John Harbaugh. There's other teams that are it's such a big part of the front office that they're not going to hire someone who doesn't embrace analytics. Like, I'm pretty sure that Nick Sirianni embraces analytics, because the Eagles wouldn't hire somebody who didn't.
Right. No, Mike, you want to add?
What you get now is a coach, and he's got to be an old school coach, and it's just a bunch of pencil pushing, mamby-pamby, pencil neck geeks or whatever. And then he keeps talking a couple sentences later, like, well, 58.3% of the time, we passed the slot receiver out of this coverage. It's like, you're clearly doing something that is analytics flavored. You don't like calling it that. You don't like the word. There's a cultural reason why you want to act like a tough guy, but it is seeping in and seeping at this level. I don't know if we're past a point or around a corner. I think it's all one big corner, and we're just going to keep turning.
Okay, let's go to Ike. Ike, you have a question. Don't screw it up, Ike.
I'll try not to this time. So Aaron and Mike, obviously the NFL draft is upcoming here, just about a month away. And I'm curious, from a journalist perspective and an analytics perspective, what do you guys look for in covering the NFL draft? And then also, there's a pretty big QB debate, I guess, besides Trevor Lawrence, in terms of who is the proper number 2. Chris Sims famously came out and said Zach Wilson is actually better than Trevor Lawrence. I think most people would probably disagree with that. So, kind of two-part question: what do you guys look for in covering the NFL draft as it relates to analytics? And then also, if you could give like your top 3 or maybe top 5 QBs in this NFL draft, kind of would love to hear that.
I'm going to let Mike go first, because Mike does more draft stuff than I do.
Go, Mike.
I could talk all day about what I want in draft coverage and what I look for. And it would be like the Snyder Cut, because it would be all over the place here. I look for stories. When I'm looking for players, I'm being asked, analyze the player. But when I want these stories, I want to know about these young men. I want to know about their journeys a little bit, who they are, what they do great, etc. I am bored beyond weariness of people talking about, like, his hip flexion and torsion and, and all these crazy things I see on the internet with these people arguing about insane things. Anyway, but I mean, that doesn't mean I want analytics. I want data. I want something concrete. Yeah, he's big, he's fast, but he dropped 4 passes against Alabama. Thank you. I have some sense of this. And then, and he was an orphan, but he overcame adversity. Great. Now I know this kid doing it great. That's what I look for on that level. Quarterbacks, oh my goodness. Okay. Trevor Lawrence is number 1. Everything else is very vague. I know people love Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson became unbelievable when BYU had to cancel its normal schedule and had to start playing Coastal Carolina and UTEP San Antonio and things
That's
like
a good
that.
point.
I think he's a solid quarterback. I don't see. Put him past Trevor Lawrence. Been watching Trevor Lawrence for 3 years, but this kid almost beat Coastal Carolina. So let's make him number one. That's cuckoo banana pants. Okay.
Aaron, you want to add to? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You want to jump in now?
No, yeah. Look, the analytics are used a lot in the draft. It's more than just combine numbers. In the class, we do a whole week on the draft and analytics. We'll talk about different methodologies, whether they're my methodologies or other people's methodologies to project quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, edge rushers. We'll talk about all that stuff. Analytics are definitely used. Teams absolutely use analytics. In the analytics-oriented teams are absolutely using analytics. It doesn't always work. Just ask Corey Coleman, because the fact is analytics isn't enough. You have to know these guys' personalities too, and their work habits and their injury rates. As far as this year's quarterbacks, I can give you a little preview of the new quarterback projection system that's going to run on Football Outsiders next week. We do have Wilson really high, but not as high as Lawrence. And I do think there's a little bit of an asterisk on that for the reasons Mike said, because this year was weird and BYU's schedule was weird. We have Fields third, we have Trey Lance fourth, and we have Mac Jones fifth.
Let me ask you, how are you dealing with the Trey Lance situation with one game senior season?
We're not using that season at all. We're only using, and I think it's a one-game junior season, right? Like we're using his sophomore season. Like we're pretending this year didn't happen.
Yeah, everything about him seems like a great young man, but yeah, it's a sophomore season and then one game due to COVID. So that's a hard projection, although he looks phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a really hard projection.
Yeah, I have a hard time with a big Mac Jones projection because he's throwing to Waddle and Smith and et cetera, et cetera.
And we ding him for that. In the Cubase dings him for that. The fact that Waddle and Smith are expected to go so high. And so is, by the way, next year, his left tackle is expected to go really high too.
Let me, we're waiting for Nick's hands. I got the question in CBA and football, the players said, hey, we had a pretty good product and we didn't have any preseason games. I'll start with Aaron, your comments on the analytics of COVID on the product, et cetera. I'm just curious, does analytics fit into that persuasion from the union standpoint? They want more money, of course, and practice less. I get it. But I'm curious what your thoughts are, what we found this year analytically.
I mean, I don't think that the absence of preseason games made any difference. We certainly didn't see any injuries in the early season.
Right.
Injury levels were actually down a little bit this year if you don't include COVID, although part of the reason was because legally you could bring players back from IR constantly instead of having to have them on IR for the rest of the season. So guys who previously would have been out for 9 or 10 games were only out for 3 or 4. But I don't think that the lack of preseason games affected play at all. And I can also tell you that like analytics has never been able to find any way to translate preseason games to project the regular season at all.
Yeah, that is good. Mike, you want to add?
Yeah, there's no evidence that there was an injury uptick. The quality of play by any measurable means, the scoring was high early in the season. I was one of those guys saying, you know what the early season's going to look like? It's going to look like when LSU plays USC on August 26th and the final score's 7-6 because the offenses are out of sync, et cetera. It was nothing like that. So I think what you were asking is the NFLPA going to call Aaron at some point and be like, we want to eliminate the preseason, bring us evidence. Well, I don't think they have. If they had, he's probably under non-disclosure not to say anything about such a thing. But it's possible because I think there's evidence there to say, abandon the preseason because it actually improves the quality of your play. And the owners will be like, okay, 18 games, and they will stare down the table at each other, and maybe we'll, who knows? We're about to have a 17 game.
Yeah, the 17 game season is happening. It's
absolutely. We've been going to London for 10 years saying that, and people laughed at me. Aaron and Mike, my question is the growth of analytics allowing, quote, a female GM for baseball, quote, people that never played the game, the letter jacket, if I may. I find the GMs with really no playing experience, but analytics. Talk about if your next door neighbor asked about analytics and how far can I go in the sport. I'll start with you, Aaron.
Yeah, you could definitely become a general manager without having played. the fact is, it's always been that way in football. More than in baseball, for example. And the reason why is because for a long time, most of the teams were family owned. So often people in the family were the management. And so they were more, and even after people in the family stopped being the management, like they stopped actually managing the player obtainment, they still were more comfortable with, they were more comfortable than other sports with people who had never played the game climbing in management. But now analytics definitely opens up for a lot of more people who never even played in college to move up the ranks. There are definitely female analytics people for teams. Sarah Bailey from the Rams, Sarah Malpal from the Ravens, just to name two. And a couple of the finalists in the Big Data Bowl were female. So there's a lot of opportunity to climb up the ranks that didn't exist before.
And you want to add to that, Mike?
Yeah, and you talk about breaking down barriers for women. I think there is a need for women's voices in football scouting right now in particular.
Absolutely.
I think in coaching, and you are seeing inroads being made at that. There is a little bit of a gatekeeping in coaching because the NCAA isn't rushing out there to hire women's coaches. They won't even put stuff in the weight rooms for the women. So it's hard to move up through the ranks like that. In the world of scouting, it is very male oriented. I think that makes the conversation very male oriented to the detriment of
right. I agree
in some ways. And I think there's going to be opportunities there. And again, through the scouting ranks, you can turn out, become director of scouting, become general manager, become team president.
Before I bring Adam in, I have a follow-up question there. The whole, not just women in sports, but I go back to Mike Matheny, the manager of my Kansas City Royals, and Mike, got fired by the Cardinals. One of his criticisms was analytics. Are you seeing more and more coaches directly wanting to learn more, or just having somebody they hire? I'm just curious of the evolution, because to me, analytics has been a revolution in sports business.
And coaches don't want to get into the weeds. What coaches want is for you to come and explain to them in a concise fashion, what have you learned and how is it going to help them win? They want you to present to them, how does it affect them on game day? How does it affect them in practice?
Good point.
They don't need to know the coding. they don't need to know all the outliers. They just want the concise. But if they buy into the program like John Harbaugh does or Frank Reich does, then they'll go out there on Sunday and they'll go for it on 4th down, or they'll go for 2 down 14, and they'll explain after the game. Analytics told us to do that, and I'm comfortable with it.
Just like in Dragnet, Just the Facts, Man, by Joe Friday. Mike, anything to add before I go to Adam?
You did it perfectly. It's just the facts, simple, concrete, concise. You only have
communication.
10 seconds to talk to that coach. You got to make them count.
Let's bring in my associate, Adam, who will stay afterwards also to answer any questions about our courses. Adam, good to see you. See if you can ask an intelligent. These are very intelligent panels. This is not we have some panels.
It's out of my league.
Compete. Yeah.
No, thanks, Mike and Aaron, for coming in today. Just a quick question. Myself and Dr. Lashbrook have done some co-representation of players on the agency side of the company. And I'm wondering, how depth are agencies now getting into analytics in regards to the structure of contracts and fighting for that extra dollar for their client? Are agencies bringing in analytical people? And if so, at what capacity?
Yeah, two things. The first is the structure of the contracts, and the second is analytics to try to make the case for your player. Whether it's, picking out some Pro Football Focus numbers or Sports Info Solutions numbers or something from Next Gen Stats, or having some sort of similarity score system that's going to predict what they're going to do over the next 3 years. You'll bring in analytics to make the case for why your player is deserving of that money. And I know of some agents, I've worked for agents in the past. I know of some agents like David Cantor, a guy who used to work for Football Outsiders, works for David Cantor now. There are definitely analytics people working for the major sports agents.
Yeah,
wow, Mike, you want to?
It's another growth opportunity and opportunity to take analytics and go to a job. You think, I got to work for a team. You can work for an agency in a variety of ways. It's another place where you wind up in the NFL family, where you are talking to players and get that seat at the table. So it's definitely something to consider.
Speaking of things we miss in Indianapolis by not going to Indianapolis, the David Cantor table at Prime.
It's
I miss
life-changing.
it. Yeah,
Yes,
miss
yes.
it.
You know, I got to be honest with you. This has been a tough year on everybody. They took me off the plane. This virus did. I did get my shots. I got my vaccine. But my point is, it's been a tough year, and sports kind of prevailed. And even this Final Four coming up, it's pretty darn exciting that you're still seeing sports. So I give it a lot of credit. Aaron, you came with us soon when our company was growing. We're online. We keep growing. COVID has been actually a surge, not in the virus in our class. Nobody's gotten COVID yet in our class. We say no mask, bring a flask. But Aaron, first to you, what have you tried to teach them in the class? I mean, people are paying for an experience, and I know they get their money's worth. We get the ratings, but talk like you're telling one of the students what you do in the class if they did take a class.
Sure. It's basically the analytics class is an overview of football analytics from the very beginning to now, how it developed over time, what different things it can do, what it can't do, the draft, free agency, comparing players through history, comparing players presently, looking at charting companies, looking at next gen stats. It really gives you an overview of everything that's happening in the analytics world, so you can then do your own work and kind of know what you're following. You're not coming into it blind.
Yeah, Mike, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was the primary last year for a while. We take turns teaching it. Sometimes we split it. There was a class where we had a coach in there, like I said, a junior county coach. We had a couple of students in there who were high school seniors who were football players who couldn't play. They were in the class. There was several times there would be somebody with a master's in engineering or mathematics, or way more mathematics background than either Aaron or I in the class. There was a person who was a published sports writer in the class, a colleague more or less of mine. It's a great opportunity. You can turn around and learn from your other students as well.
And I got to add to both of you. I just, what I take most pride in, including my Sunday chat where we try to compliment, it's a lifetime membership. But I got to be honest with you. I think once you you're in the SMWW family, we do resume search, but I got to be honest with you. You just go out and meet people. The more people you meet, the more they might be interviewing you and you don't know it. You're getting an informational interview, 10-minute information interview. It's crazy, even during COVID. And I also think the growth of analytics around the world and the growth of football. I go back to London, but they sell out in 20 minutes. It leads me to my last question with you guys, and we'll take any more. We have marketing people in here. Where does analytics fit in the fan engagement, marketing, bottom line revenue? Everybody's using analytics one way or another. What role do you play in that, or any in outside of the game in the stands, if I may, when it comes to analytics?
Well, I mean, I don't do anything personally that's related to fan engagement, but there's no question that if you can do data science, that teams need data scientists to study things like sponsorships and attendance. And at the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference every year, which is the biggest sports analytics conference, there's a whole track of business-related panels that are about things like sponsorships, television rights, digital rights, attendance,
fan engagement.
Fan engagement. It's not anything that either Mike or I has ever worked with, but it's absolutely a place where data science is involved.
Mike, you want to add to that?
Math is math, football is football. It's a different department, but there are people in there, trying to figure out what's trending. In the same way we're trying to figure out which quarterback is going to make it to the next level, which brand is going to make it to the next level.
A follow-up to your comment, being a professor at age 23 in kinesiology, and today I say it's not the degree on the wall that's most important, it's the wall, stupid. I didn't call you stupid, but correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes we all try to get that undergrad in sports analytics and then a master's, and talk about the successful people in the business of analytics, sports analytics, and some of their backgrounds, because I don't think everybody has a doctorate in kinesiology. I'll start with you, Aaron.
There was no degree in sports analytics. I mean, I'm the first person to do football analytics publicly. There's no degree. I have an economics degree and a radio disc jockey background. So, it's the way that kids are coming into out of schools today with data science degrees and everything is kind of incredible. But you don't need a data science degree to get into football analytics. You do need a knowledge of the sport, a knowledge of the history of football analytics. That's, what this class will provide. And you need to have some programming knowledge, which is like, you need to know R, Python.
And so many people do, but they don't have any connection to sports. I think I like that bridge. Let's go to you, Mike, with your comments. I have one other question after that.
And that's what I was saying earlier. One person in the course might be a far better programmer than me, a better mathematician than me. One is a coach who has more on-field knowledge than me. Each stage along the way, the people that we work with have a very diverse set backgrounds and a diverse skill set. Very few of them are math degree people or ex-players.
Right.
And all these people, we grow together and we merge. And the people who are flexible are the people who move on.
So let's talk about each of you, your job, your day and your season or month. I'm just curious, what's the life of analytics? I know we've all been stuck at home, but help me out on what
all our days are the same.
Aaron, I'll go with you. And I mean that, like, what are some of the things you do and what gets your adrenaline going on some of the exciting things?
I mean, running our numbers, looking for trends, looking for interesting stories in the numbers is what gets me going, really. And writing, during the season, I write regularly, both for Football Outsiders and for ESPN. In the off season, it's all about projecting next year and then looking for trends from last year that are interesting that we can put in the book. And we write this big book every year that comes out in the preseason, the Football Outsiders Almanac, which is, you'll read it as part of the class. You'll read last year's book as part of the class while we're working on this year's book. So it's really about looking for stories we can tell, and numbers are just, for me as an analytics journalist, like numbers are just the language of the stories that I tell.
Sure. Yeah. Mike, add to that.
I miss the grind. I love writing for Aaron. A lot of times it's quietly sitting in an office writing. I miss going out to the training camps, going out to mini camps, standing, sweating on the sidelines for 3 hours, watching other people exercise. I got more of a sweat than they do. Going to the combine, all these things in the world of a journalist. Yeah, I'm using the math on one hand, but I get this opportunity to live this sort of football life, and that's exciting. Even at my age, where it's like, oh, it's a dingy hotel room and a continental breakfast. It's exciting because you get out there, you meet your colleagues, you meet the players, you meet the coaches, and it's like we said, and you miss it when it's gone.
We always tell our students, adrenalize today and monetize tomorrow. I'm going to go back to Aaron. What's your future of growing your business? What are some of your generic goals out there? Because we all want to grow and make more money. How do you separate yourself from everybody else out there? Because in one hand, you have to listen. On the other hand, you can't be afraid to come out with something nobody's come out with. I mean, you're a pioneer in the business, so I admire you very much, but you don't want to get stale either. So what keeps you, how do you keep innovating, if I may? What are you looking for? What are your thoughts?
We're going to introduce more fantasy tools on Football Outsiders in 2021, DFS tools. We're looking towards doing more video and audio content. And then the other thing, I'm always looking to improve my methods. Like even when I don't change my methods, I've probably spent 2 or 3 weeks in the off season trying to change my methods and finding that actually the thing that I played with doesn't actually make it any better, which is what I've been doing the last few days, finding out that something I thought would make it better didn't. But there's always, we're always working on honing our methods, whether it's my main stat DVOA or whether it's our picks against the spread formula, but as far as where we're growing our business, there's definitely going to be more fantasy stuff coming from us and more video. Okay, Mike, your comments on that.
Yeah, it's funny because fantasy, you mentioned DFS, fantasy used to mean, oh, you have to be ready for your draft in July and August. And when I started writing, I knew that was an audience. And of course, we'd bring the analytics and statistics in, but the fantasy season's August. Now fantasy season is year-round DFS. I had to adjust on the fly. I had to learn that. I wasn't playing DFS. People care this week, not because he's on my bench or whatever. Take him off your bench. Put him in your stack. You have to change things like that. And that's a different marketplace. It's a changing marketplace. So you have to evolve. You know what happens if you don't evolve? You become like a dinosaur, et cetera. And that's something we have to do in journalism as well. Plus, we had to make the transition from internet screens to tablet screens to cell phone screens, et cetera. How do you write? It's different. No one wants to read War and Peace on something this big here. Yep. And so you change the way you interact with your audience. And we all have to learn. I had to learn. My editors had to learn, teach me, et cetera, how we were going to move forward with things like that.
So I tell, and anybody else have any questions before I bring Adam in to talk about anything else and get all your questions? Aaron, I tell people that the secret to our company is our industry leaders. I don't think you have a doctorate. I don't think Mike does, but you're damn good at what you do, and you're knowledgeable, and you talk about next week what happened during the week, which online is, to me, it's a vector that'll never go away, just like sports is a substitute for war. But I get excited, to be honest with you, when we come to Indy and we'll bring in, whether we bring in the NFL, bring in Mark Dominic or Mark Trestman or John Wooten. I'm just fascinated, as Mike said, when we get into those conferences, and we'll be doing those again. We'll be going to NBA Summer League, the NHL. I mean, we were really clicking with those, and you're absolutely right. I think the appetite to get back together and drink a beer after the day is something really missing in the electricity. But any final comments, Aaron, on this? So you guys are marvelous, and what you do mostly, besides very smart, is you have fun. And if you're not having fun, it really doesn't work, does it?
Yeah, no, I'm lucky. I have a dream job. And even though sometimes it is a job and there are days where it's like there's a grind, but I'm very lucky to be able to do this for a living. And it absolutely is a dream job. And the fact is, we got away lucky, talking about COVID in the last year. The fact that we were the sport that was in the off season when COVID hit made our lives so much easier than anybody who covered baseball or basketball. Oh my God, football, our lives were so much easier. We really got lucky.
So are you pulling for mutations to take over?
What? No, I'm fine with everything just going back to the way they were before. That's fine with me.
Mike, anything else?
I just, what he said, I had friends being laid off and everything. I'm writing about the draft because the draft was something you could do on the phone and all. So we were lucky. It is a dream job. Pursuing what you love is worth it. And pursue it, like you said, adrenalize. If you're pursuing what you love, make sure you do it with 110% because that's what matters.
And both of them, I want you to know, I've been to 2 Super Bowls in a row, being from Kansas City. And going into this Super Bowl down in Tampa, I said from day one in the office, and Aaron, I didn't talk to you or Mike, with those 2 tackles out, I think we're in trouble, no matter how good Pat Mahomes is. Comment on the Super Bowl respectfully and reflectively.
Yeah, it's interesting because it helped teach a couple of lessons. It helped teach that you don't necessarily extrapolate from a regular season game into a postseason rematch. And the talk about Kansas City, that they had some kind of switch they could turn on and off, looks to have been a bit exaggerated. But it also definitely taught the cascade effect of injuries, which is one injury on a unit hurts, but 2 injuries on a unit really hurts, and 3 injuries on a unit. And as you get lower and lower on your depth chart, the difference between the player and the next player becomes larger and larger.
Mike, you want to add?
Well, it happened to Aaron on Football Outsiders, among his many stats, had a statistic about how many pass interference penalties Tom Brady's receivers incurred. And we did a little bit of research. It turned out to be a record. It turned out to be an all-time record for pass interference penalties. I don't want to say it's sinister and like, Tom Brady gets calls, although he does. But I don't want to say that. But I was able to then to go to the New York Times as part of our preview package and talk about pass interference penalties and this trend as a possible thing. Well, if you remember the game, in addition to the injuries at tackle, there were several penalties in a row.
Yeah, pass interference penalties. Yep.
And it was exciting because in a world of gobbledygook talked about the Super Bowl, I was at the blessing, thanks to Aaron's research, of being in the New York Times saying this game could come down to pass interference penalties and the Buccaneers receivers getting calls.
You're a hero.
And it did, and it was something meaningful and substantial to add to the conversation.
Absolutely.
That's what's great about analytics. You can be adding something. It's very value additive to the conversation.
Hey, you can't leave. You remember the show, The Price is Right. We got a guy named Doug Price. I don't know why he took so long analytically, but Doug, you're our last caller, and then we'll bring Adam in. Doug, welcome in with your introduction. Thanks for coming in.
Well, hello. Thank you very, very much. And I've got one quick question because Adam kind of stole my thunder earlier when he mentioned about the contract negotiation and use of analytics there, but it kind of dovetails to another that I have. And I was briefly in Mike's class last year and I had to bail out because the workplace got a little bit nuts. But how would that information, as far as the analytics, be useful for an agent or advisor when different teams have different salary cap constraints?
Mike, I'll let you start.
I remember we would talk about old wide receivers and old tight ends, wouldn't we, a little bit?
Yes. That was the John Mackey.
Yes. Oh yeah, it was John
comparison,
Mackey
yeah.
and all, et cetera. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one thing is a lot of times it just dovetails naturally between the analytics and the cap situation. A lot of times it's the same department. They're doing a lot of the same things. So you come in, if you're on the agent side, you come in knowing each team's cap constraints. You have a structure for your player, have an expectation for your player, and you know how you can wiggle around that. Yeah. Hey, for this team, you'll extend out the void years, et cetera. What you need to have as you come in on the agent side is as much information as possible, accurate information about that team's cap and everything you need to be loaded for bear, not just to say you can afford this, you can't afford my guy right now, but my guy's better than Allen Robinson, my guy is better than Kenny Galladay, whoever, and whatever you have to back that up. So you kind of come in with a portfolio. I'm getting my taxes done. I come in with my portfolio and everything else like that. You come in with, these are all the things I know about my guy. Here's what I know about your salary cap. So if you say you can't afford them, then I say that's BS, or maybe you're trying to sign 8 other guys, whatever, and everybody comes loaded for bear.
Yeah, that's good. Aaron, comment.
Not much to add. I mean, my knowledge about with Ed is much more about like agents trying to make the case for their guy, why this guy's going to be good over the next 2 or 3 years for you. But they're absolutely analytics is involved in figuring out sort of an approximation of what a guy should make and how to fit that under the cap.
Yeah. I want to thank you guys. You're great. I can't wait to see it. Liz says hi to all of you. I'll buy the drinks and the meal and everything. So you just got to get on the plane sooner than later. But we're lucky you took the time today. Adam's going to stay in and talk a little bit about SMWW. But it was an excellent Doc Talk. Thanks to both of you, and have a great evening.
Hope to see some of you in the class in a couple of weeks. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, both of them. Thank you, guys. Let's bring in Adam. And Adam, just give them a little, any other questions they might ask as Mike and Aaron take off. And always appreciate you coming in and answering questions. And that was a great question on the agent deal, because that's a new industry as well. So Adam, welcome back, and good to have you in, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah, so I just come in at the end of the Doc Talks. I see quite a few familiar names from previous Doc Talks participating today. And what I like to do for those of you who are new to the Doc Talks is kind of go over what SMW does after you complete any of the courses. If you are interested in Mike and Aaron's course, it's our football analytics course. It is starting up April 5th. All of our courses are 8-week online courses, and they're all taught by industry leaders such as Mike and Aaron. And what I really like to speak about is, when I'm talking to people on a daily basis, they're more interested in, well, how does this help me in my future? And what I like to say about our courses is, if you're looking to work in sports, you have to have certain things on your resume that teams are looking for to at least bring you in for that interview process. And then B, you want to feel comfortable in that interview process so you feel like you can succeed in it. And then C, the whole networking aspect that SMWW can bring to you. What we do is not only the 8-week online courses, but after you complete the course, we have free resume services that Dr. Lashbrook mentioned, to where we get everything you're learning in the course on your resume. So you're bringing something to the table. If you want to get into football scouting, there's certain things that you need to have on your resume: the National Bledsoe scouting systems, the grading scale, how to write the football scouting reports, the language used in them, the format of them. So we're making sure you're getting those things on your resume. People that take the scouting courses, I also say, send a scouting report when you're sending out your resume. And you never know, like we brought up in this chat, there's several different opportunities. It's not always just working for a team. It could be working for NFL Draft Scout, Our Lads Scouting Services. Like they said, analytics on the agency side of the business. So there's several different opportunities there. Also, using your instructors as references is a very big deal, because all of our instructors have been in the business for a long time and they're well recognized. So being able to use your instructors as references. Also, we have a whole job links area of what teams are hiring and for what positions and where to be sending your resume. Also, a lot of the instructors, if you guys do not have LinkedIn accounts, one of the first things we have you do is set up a LinkedIn account. And a lot of the instructors will give out career opportunities via LinkedIn as well. And you're usually getting those before they go to the public. And there's some of our instructors too, that if you really participate in their course and you get a bond with them, will make even personal phone calls for you as well and give you a personal recommendation to a team in regards to, getting you the position within the organization. We also have executive packages that we just came out with. A new thing in sports is having a quote unquote badge on your resume. So we have now executive packages, advanced certificate program, to where you take 4 of our courses, you get a highly discounted rate on the 4 courses, you receive the badge to put on your resume, which is very attractive to teams now as well. We have apprenticeship programs. So after you take our basketball courses, there's a chance to work with Net Scouts basketball. After you take any of our football courses, we have a football apprenticeship program. Last year, 2 years ago due to COVID, but we had guys that went and helped scout the East-West Shrine game, and were able to go to the game and meet the people and the players. And so there's the apprenticeship programs. If you're looking to forward your degree, and not everyone needs a masterate or doctorate, we do have a partnership with Concordia University of Chicago to get a master's degree or doctorate in sports leadership. So those are some of the things that we have to offer. We have over 30 courses. And like I said, I talk to people all the time, and they're wondering how to get a career started in sports. Well, like I said, you have to have something on your resume that's attracted to teams. And that's what all of our courses do. To send in a resume, I'm a Packers fan. I'm originally from Green Bay. I'm sure if I've called any of you, I have a 920 area code. If I send in a resume to the Green Bay Packers, and knowing people that have even worked there, to say I'm really passionate about football and I'd love to work for the Packers, they get hundreds of resumes like that all the time. It's what is on your resume that makes you stand out, to where going from the pile of I just love football and I'm passionate about football to that pile to, hey, this guy actually knows the National Blood Cell Scouting System or the grading scale, or he's really strong in sports sales and marketing, and he knows ticket revenue and ticket sales, and maybe has some new ideas on how we can generate revenue, since we're not unable to sell tickets right now. So those are the things that our courses help you out with and bring you to the table. We also, I think, have a spectacular thing for new agents. If you're interested in becoming an agent in any sport, we have several different agent courses. We have our athlete management course. That's how I got started. It goes over the representation of basketball, baseball, football, and hockey. We didn't have the other ones back when I first started, but I still really liked that course because I didn't know where my connections was going to be in sports when I first took the athlete management course. And now I've represented a player who's in the NBA. I've had several players that are in the NFL. I also have worked with some minor league baseball players, and I was actually also a family advisor with Manny Schmidt to a hockey player over on the East Coast. So I've kind of dealt in all of it. But if you were a college baseball player, for instance, and all of your connections are in baseball, we have a baseball agent course, a basketball agent course specifically, soccer agent sport specifically, that has great instructors that are based over in the UK. And after you do any of our agent courses, there's a chance to do co-representation with the agency side of our company, and you get a 40% commission split on anything the professional contract would bring into the agency side of our company. So that's a great way to get your own little business going. And doing agent work when you first start off, it's not a 40-hour work week. You keep your day job, but you're looking at prospects on the weekend. John Print, who heads up the soccer side of things for us, holds a chat on Mondays for the agent advisors that are interested in soccer. And then I hold a chat on Wednesday evenings for people that are interested in the other sports. So we continue your education. Who is a prospect? Where do you find prospects? How do you get them marketing materials? How do you get on a conference call with them and kind of pitch the agency? And you kind of go from there. So several different platforms. And like I said, if you want to get into scouting, we have motorsports management, and it's worldwide. We have people that sign up for our rugby and cricket course that are based down in South Africa or India. So a lot of things that are covered. And like I said, it's taking that step and believing in the process of our courses. The courses are very reasonably priced. We have payment plans as well. We have the lowest payment plan for some of the courses is 3 payments of $495 spread over 3 months. Another payment plan is 3 payments at $350, just depending. Some of the courses have different prices, just depending on what it is. So I just kind of wanted to do that summary. And then if anyone does have any other questions that weren't covered today by Mike and Aaron, I know a little bit about football analytics, but in regards to any questions in regards to SMWW, we do have alumni discounts for anyone in here that is an alumni. If you are interested in another course, you get a $300 discount. If you're interested, I always recommend people to do a 2-course strategy just because it makes yourself more marketable for more positions within a sport. So if you're interested in football, GM, and scouting, and Aaron and Mike's course, football analytics, if you would sign up for both of those, you would get a $400 discount. So those are some of the opportunities that you have. And also just for some of the people, I know sometimes it's tough and people like multiple sports. If you're looking to use this as opening up career opportunities, unless if it's on the agent side, you can take the athlete management and then still do multiple sports. But if you're looking to get into scouting or analytics, try and stick with one sport. That's one advice that I always give to people, just because different sports use different software programs and different ways to analyze players. And if you try and spread yourself too thin instead of just trying to focus on one sport, I think that kind of hurts your chances. Instead of doing a baseball scouting course, a soccer scouting course, and then baseball analytics or something, stick to one sport and maybe take 2 or 3 courses in that one sport. And it just makes you that more marketable for opportunities within that sport. So once again, I'll open it up. I see Becca's in here. I've seen her name several times in past chats. Harris, I already know because he comes into my agent advisor chats. But if anyone else has any other questions in regards to how SMWW might be able to help you out, feel free to ask it now. If not, Ike, I hope my microphone wasn't rubbing on my SMWW jacket. Do you have anything else, Ike?
Yeah.
Did I miss anything, or can you think of anything else?
No, I think we're good. I just saw Douglas unmuted himself. Douglas, did you have a question for Adam?
Oh yeah, I was going for the hand, but glad you saw me on mute. So thanks.
Yeah.
Save me the extra step. Hi, Adam. You mentioned the dovetailing of courses, and I was bouncing around in my head the idea of leaping either at the salary cap CBA and or the athlete management course, which are also starting, and then I'm starting like football analytics on the 5th as well. So I'm just wondering whether or not, you mentioned spreading yourself too thin. I guess I'm just trying to be a gauge of my own sort of time.
Yeah, and I was paying attention and listening in when you asked your question. So are you interested in doing agent work?
In the long run, right now, I'm kind of winding down my longtime career because I know I couldn't do all of that at once. That was part of the reason why I had to back out of the Mike's class the last go round.
Sure. What I would say, you're already taking football analytics, which I think is great. I would look at doing athlete management next. Just in, are you thinking that you're interested in doing kind of what I did and oversee multiple sports, or did you just have one particular sport you were interested in?
Multiple sports has crossed my mind, but I'm not committed one way or another as yet. I'm still kind of earlier in that period.
Yeah, I would look at the athlete management course just because as you're winding down your other career, like I said I kept my day job. I was the part owner and general manager of a brewery and restaurant out here in Portland. And that's how I got to know Dr. Lashbrook. I was about to have a daughter. That's a work hard, play hard lifestyle. And I knew I kind of wanted to get out of that. I didn't want to be up until 1 a.m. and, just dealing with headaches at the brewery. And I didn't really know what sport, like I said, what sport I'd really have connections to all that much. My dad was on the board of directors for a while for the Packers, so I knew I had some connections there. But that's why I took athlete management. And Dr. Lashbrook saw the way I was with people, and I was a pretty social person. So I took our athlete management course, and right away the first year, I got a player out of Texas A&M, a football player that got invited to rookie camp for the Dallas Cowboys. Unfortunately, he reported in underweight. He was a speed rusher in college, and he reported in underweight, so they had to work him out at safety. And obviously, that's a whole different style of footwork that you use as a edge pass rusher compared to what you do at safety. So they unfortunately let him go. But that was right after I had taken the course. That was within the first year. I got a player into rookie camp, and then after that, Chase Billingsley, a wide receiver out of Eastern Oregon that was with the Lions for a while, and the Patriots. Then I got Alfonso McKinney, the basketball player that I spoke about. So then I dabbled in basketball for a while, and Brett Canis and I were representing some guys. Then I went back to football, and Kyle Sloter, who's still in the NFL, just got signed a futures deal with the Raiders. So I would recommend the athlete management. And to be honest with you, while you're winding down your other career, like I said, you get that course out of the way, and then to start looking at prospects and things like that, you can take 5 hours on a Saturday or Sunday and really start honing in kind of who you feel are prospects, who you think you might have connections to. The reason why we signed Al, like I said, is he went to the same university that I graduated from. So we had a connection there. And now I've worked with several different schools of representing some of their players. So now I keep looking at those schools to see what prospects they might have. I look from prospects from the Green Bay area and surrounding areas just because I'm from there. So that's another way to make a connection. Now living in Portland, we look at guys that went to high schools around here, and they might be playing at University in Nebraska. Like Ndamukong Suh is from here and went to Nebraska. And that's just another way, because one of my family members back in Green Bay might have a connection to their family, or one of my colleagues' brothers might know the guy that played with Ndamukong Suh, for example. So it doesn't take too much time to start, getting your feet wet and kind of getting the experience of doing agent work. So I would look at athlete management next. And then what you're saying with salary cap. So after about 2 years in, then I wanted to start getting to know, because first year contracts are all pretty much structured. There's not much there's not much to them. But it's the second contract where I wanted to start learning more about the salary cap and the CBA. And that's where, after I had a few players, that's where I started looking at doing salary cap and the CBA.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the CBA, because earlier in the whole COVID phase, I did a YouTube thing with Steinberg. And one of the things that they discussed there was the fact that for early year players, all the contracts are pretty much wrote and they're laid out in the CBA. And as I looked through it, I mean, it wasn't even so much what was in the CBA, but what was not in the CBA that kind of made me curious. And that kind of goes to some of the issues of the analytics and stuff that we talk about in this space. It's much more geared, as I would think, towards a veteran contract negotiation, So
no doubt about it.
And so I'm very much taking into consideration what you said. I appreciate it. And about a decade or so, I was out there in Portland, kind of on the regular, because I was living outside of Seattle. So a lot of my work took me down to Portland. So Pearl District is a nice stretch out there.
Yeah, it's very nice. And in fact, that's where our office is located.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
all kind
As
of,
soon as I
we're
saw
all
the
kind-
address.
Yeah, I'm kind of working from home right now because I live out towards the mountains. So I live out almost towards Sandy. I don't know if you're familiar where that
Oh,
is.
yeah. So
but-
you're further out to the east, right?
Oh,
Out- yeah,
yes.
okay.
I used to live in Chicago for a while and in
Oh.
LA for a while back when I was younger, and I'm tired of the city life. I like to live out a little further where I can get away from people a little bit.
Gotcha.
So.
Sometimes that's good. And times like this is very.
Yeah.
Thank
You're
you
welcome,
very much. I
Douglas.
really appreciate it.
No problem. Does anyone else have any other questions? Feel free to either unmute yourself or raise your hand. At this point, I think you probably could just unmute yourself. Otherwise, I'm guessing Ike will probably wrap things up here. Ike?
Yeah, I
take it over.
I think we're all set to go. So, Adam, thank you very much for taking the time and speaking with everyone, and to everyone for joining in and sticking around. It's great to have you in here, and hopefully you all learned a lot. And our next Doc Talk is going to be on April 1st, which is next week, with soccer analytics. So the other football analytics, which is going to be fun. That's with Lee Frazier, with formerly with Newcastle United, the EPL team. And we're very excited to sit down and talk with him. So everyone, Adam, and to all of those who will be listening on the recording, thank you all for joining us and listening in, and we'll see you all on the next one.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thank you guys.